Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more Pandas Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. Yeah. Anyway, we were going to finish up this introduction here today, so let's jump into this. What happened to punctuation? Why is it so disregarded when it is self-evidently so useful in preventing enormous mix-ups? A headline in today's paper says dead son's photos may be released. The story relating to dead sons in the plural, but you would never know. The obvious culprit is the recent history of education practice. We can blame the pedagogues. Until 1960, punctuation was routinely taught in British schools. A child sitting in a county school exam in 1937 would be asked to punctuate the following puzzler. Charles I walked and talked half an hour after his head was cut off. Answer: Charles I walked and talked half an hour after his head was cut off. Today, thank goodness, the national curriculum ensures that when children are 8, they are drilled in the use of the comma, even if their understanding or grammar is at such an early age a bit hazy. For cutting a dash, we visited a school in Cheshire where quite small children were being taught that you use commas in the following situations. 1. In a list. 2. Before dialogue. 3. To mark out additional information. Which was very impressive. Identifying additional information at the age of 8 is quite an achievement, and I know for a fact that I couldn't have done it. But if things were looking faintly more optimistic under the national curriculum, there remains the awful truth that for over a quarter of a century, punctuation and English grammar were simply not taught in the majority of schools, with the effect that A-level examiners annually bewailed the condition of examinees written English, while nothing was done. Candidates couldn't even spell the words grammar and sentence, let alone use them in any well-informed way. Attending a grammar school myself between 1966 and 1973, I don't remember being taught punctuation either. There was a comical moment in the 5th year when our English teacher demanded, "But you have had lessons in grammar?" And we all looked shifty as if the fault was ours. We had been taught Latin, French, and German grammar, but English grammar was something we felt we were expected to infer from our reading, which is doubtless why I came a cropper over its and its. Like any uninstructed people, I surmised that if there was a version of its with an apostrophe before S, there was somehow logically bound to be a version of its with an apostrophe after S as well. A shame no one set me right on this common misapprehension, really, but there you are. I just remember a period when, convinced that an apostrophe and definitely required somewhere, I would cunningly suspend a very small one immediately above the S. to cover all eventualities. Imagine my teenage wrath when, time after time, my homework was returned with this well meant floating apostrophe struck out. Why? I would rail, using all my powers of schoolgirl inference and getting nowhere. Hadn't I balanced it perfectly? How could the teacher possibly tell I had put it in the wrong place? Luckily for me, I was exceptionally interested in English and got there in the end. While other girls were out with their boyfriends on Sunday afternoons getting their necks disfigured by love bites, I was at home with the wireless listening to an Ian Messiter quiz called Many a Slip, in which erudite and amusing contestants spotted grammatical errors in pieces of prose. It was a fantastic program. I dream sometimes they have brought it back. Panelists such as Isabel Barnett and David Nixon would interrupt Roy Plumley with a buzz and say, tautology. Around this same time, when other girls of my age were attending the Isle of Wight Festival and having abortions, I bought a copy of Eric Partridge's Usage and Abusage, and it covered in its sticky-backed plastic so that it would last a lifetime. It has. Funny how I didn't think of any of this was peculiar at the time when it was the behavior with Proto Stickler written all over it. But I do see now why it was no accident that later I wound up as a sub-editor with a literal blue pencil. But to get back to the dark side of the moon, years in British education, when teachers upheld a view that grammar was and spelling got in the way of self-expression, it is arguable that the timing of their grammatical apathy could not have been worse. In the 1970s, no educationist would have predicted the explosion in universal written communication caused by the personal computer, the internet, and the keypad of the mobile phone. But now, look what's happened. Everyone's a writer. Everyone is posting film reviews on Amazon that go like this. I watched this film about a boy a few days ago, expecting the usual Hugh Grant bumbling character I've come to loathe expect from the years. I was thoroughly surprised. This film was great. One of the best films I have seen in a long time. The film focuses around one man who starts going to a single parents meeting to meet women. One problem, he doesn't have a child. Isn't this sad? People who have been taught nothing about their own language are contrary to educational expectations, spending all their leisure hours attempting to string sentences together for the education of others. And there is no editing on the internet. Meanwhile, in the world of the text messages, ignorance of grammar and punctuation obviously doesn't affect a person's ability to communicate messages such as "see you later." But if you try anything longer, it always seems to turn out much like the writing of an infant Pip in Great Expectations. Me dear Joe, I hope you are quite well. I hope I shall soon be able for to teach you, Joe, and then we sure'll be so glad. And when I am printed to you, Joe, what larks, and believe me, Inf and Pip. Now there are many people who claim that that they do fully punctuate text messages. For cutting a dash, we ask people in the street outside the Palladium Theater, as it happens at about 5 p.m., if they use proper punctuation when sending text messages, and were surprised, not to say incredulous, when 9 out of 10 people said yes. Some of them said they use semicolons and parentheses and everything. I'm a grammar geek, explained one young New Zealand woman. I'm trying to teach my teenage son to punctuate properly, said a nice scholarly looking man. I kept offering these respondents an easy way out. It's a real fag going through the punctuation menu, though. I mean, it would be quite understandable if you couldn't be bothered. But we evidently stumbled into Grammar Geek Alley, and there was nothing we could do. Of course, I could punctuate my text messages. I did A-level English, one young man explained with a look of scorn. Evidently, an A-level in English is a sacred trust, like something out of the Lord of the Rings. You must go forth with your A-level and protect the English language with your bow or elfin gold. But do you know what? I don't believe those people. Either they were weirdly self-selecting, or they were simply lying for the microphone. Point out to the newsagent that Dead Son's photos may be released. It is not grammatically complete, and he will hastily change the subject to the price of milk. Stand outside a Leicester Square cinema and inditing with a cutout apostrophe on a stick how the title 2 weeks notice might be easily grammatically corrected. I did this, and not a soul will take your side or indeed have the clue what your problem is. And that's sad. Taking our previous analogies for punctuation, what happens when it isn't used? Well, if punctuation is the stitching of language, language becomes a part, obviously, of all the buttons fall off. If punctuation provides the traffic signals, words bang into each other and everyone ends up in minded. If one can bear for a moment to think of punctuation marks as those invisibly beneficent fairies, I'm sorry, our poor deprived language goes parched and pillowless to bed. And if you take the courtesy analogy, a sentence no longer holds the door open for you when you walk in, but drops it in your face as you approach. The reason it's worth standing up for punctuation is not that it's an arbitrary system of notation known only to an oversensitive elite who have attacks on the vapors when they see it misspelled. The reason to stand up for punctuation is that without it, there is no reliable way of communicating meaning. Punctuation herds words together, keeps others apart. Punctuation directs you how to read, in the way musical notation directs a musician how to play. As we shall see in the chapter on commas, it was first used by Greek dramatists 2,000 years ago to guide actors between breathing points, thus leading to the modern explanation of why a cat is not a comma. A cat has claws at the end of its paws. A comma's a pause at the end of a clause. Words strung together without punctuation recall those murky morals Rolf Harris used to paint, where you keep tilting your head and wondering what it was. Then Rolf would dip a small brush into a pot of white and, to be deathless, teasing line. Can you guess what it is yet? Add a line here, a dot there, a curly bit, and suddenly all was clear. Good heavens! It just looked like a splooge of colors, and all along it was a kangaroo in football boots having a sandwich. Similarly, taking a bit of unpunctuated prose, add the dots and flourishes in the right place, stand back, and what have you got? My dear Joe, I hope you are quite well. I hope I shall soon be able to teach you, Joe, and then we shall be so glad. And when I am apprentice to you, Joe, what larks! Believe me, in affection, Pip. But we'll go ahead and end at that section because they've got a pause in the introduction there with an apostrophe, so yeah. So we won't finish it today. I thought we might, but no. Maybe next episode. 13 pages to remain. But yeah. First of all, let me say, the F word, I don't think that was meant as an attack on people of a homosexual nature. Because it does go in rather normal slang when it goes to British English. As it is a word for cigarette. I don't know what it's meant in this particular instance, but it's not necessarily referencing a person, nor is it referencing a cigarette. So apparently there's another word it's tied to. But I didn't want y'all to think it was meant as an attack on anybody. It wasn't. They talk about the headline, Dead Son's Photos May Be Released. And because there is no apostrophe, it's plural. Because if you made it son apostrophe S, that would indicate possession of the photos. The photos that had belonged to a dead son. But without the apostrophe, it becomes multiple dead sons' photos. Not even photos they had possessed. It's just photos of dead sons if you do not properly punctuate that. So, yeah. Again, people may think it's ridiculous, but there is a reason for spelling and punctuation. It's. She talks about the floating apostrophe she would put up there to try to hide things, and it's like, when when it's possessive, I don't think you put the apostrophe in it. You put the apostrophe in it for it is, which is a contraction. I believe that's the one. There's one, it's just ITS, and the other is IT apostrophe S. There is no ITS apostrophe, because it can never be plural. So, yeah. What she talks about listening to English language shows when other girls her age were attending the Isle of Wight festival and having abortions. Think of Burning Man. The Isle of Wight is a little island in the section of water between Ireland and most of the UK. Yeah, the Isle of Wight is in there, so it's a little festival they have on that island, and of course, it's getting a bit wild if girls are having abortions. Talk about the dark side of the moon years in British education. Reference to Pink Floyd, of course. Then she talks about people suddenly being a writer and someone posting a movie review on Amazon. I watched this film about a boy. They've got about a boy in parentheses. A few days ago. Which there should have been a comma there. Expecting the usual Hugh Grant bumbling. Hugh's not capitalized, but Grant is. So Hugh Grant. And then they have ellipses. Character, no apostrophe in I've, come to loathe / expect over the years. I was thoroughly surprised. It just ends with a period. I was thoroughly surprised. He wasn't. I was thoroughly surprised. No. The way he punctuated that with just a period makes it, I was thoroughly surprised. Oh, a sentence like that should end with an exclamation. Because you were surprised. That's an emotion. This film was great. One of the best films I've seen in a long time. Not bad sentence. That's pretty good. The film focuses around one man who starts going to a single parents meeting. He didn't put an apostrophe in parents because it is a meeting for single parents. So it is in the possession of single parents. Comma, to meet women, comma, one problem, he doesn't have a child. they should have put single parents meeting, comma, to meet women. They should have put period, not another comma. Then it should have been one problem, comma, he doesn't have a child. They've got he in that capitalized, but they don't have a period before it. So it's a useless capitalization. Then she talks about text messages. They can say, see you later, and it's got C and U as just the letters, and then the word later spelled out. But anything longer looks like something that the infant Pip would write in Great Expectations. Great Expectations. The young Pip is very uneducated. And so I read you how it was spelled. But I think what they're trying to say is, my dear Joe, I hope you are quite well. I hope I shall soon be able to teach you to. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. Teach, Teedge, you, Joe, and then we shall be so glad, and when I am pranked. Pip shouldn't be pregnated, so it's not that word. I'm wondering what it's supposed to be. To you, Joe, what larks, Larks is what it's supposed to be. What larks? But they got it spelled Larx. And believe me, infant Pip. Yeah. But she goes back, talks about some of the other things, dead son's photos, 2 weeks notice, just how ridiculous it is. I love this little thing they have. A cat has claws at the end of its paws. A comma's a pause at the end of a clause. Cat, claws at the end of pause, comma, pause at the end of a clause. But yeah. But yeah, this just in okay. This is what the infant Pip was trying to say, because I got it below here. My dear Joe, I hope you are quite well. I hope I shall soon be able to teach you, Joe. And then we shall be so glad. And when I am apprenticed to you, Joe, what larks! Believe me in affection, Pip. That was that weird spelling in the other paragraph. Me dear Joe, I hope you are quite well. I hope I shall soon be able for to teach you, Joe, and then we shall be so glad. And when I am pregnant to you, Joe, what larks, and believe me, infant Hanks and Pip. That's what that was. It's showing how seriously spelling and spelling and punctuation changes things. So yeah. But we'll go ahead and end that episode there. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing. Ask them to cite their sources. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, later.